YouTube channel. For those of you when you hear, my name is Chido, and to all my returning subbies, hey, what's good, what's poppin'? I missed you, and I know you missed me too, but I'm here now. How's everybody doing? I think I'm catching a cold. I keep sniffing and I don't understand why. But I'm strong, okay? I'm strong. I don't get sick. I don't get sick anymore. That was old me. That was me before I got cleansed. Anyway, today we're gonna talk about, I don't even know I'm being silly when I'm actually about to talk about something very serious right now. I've been meaning to talk about this for a very, very long time, but every time I got up to record, guys, I think I'm actually losing weight, hey? I can't fit the ring. Look, it just slides off. It just slides off. What? Okay, I think we need a new ring. Anyway, sorry. I'm not gonna get my hopes up first. Anyway, I'm joking. So anyway, I don't even know why I'm laughing. I think I'm laughing to kind of like diffuse the conversation. I don't know if that makes sense. Because I have been meaning, a few people had asked me to do this a very long time ago, but I was never ready for it because every single time I film anything about grief, every single time I would get in front of this camera to talk about grief, baby, emotionally the words, they would not come out. I would cry, and I don't even know if this is gonna work. Disclaimer, I don't even know if you're ever gonna see this. Because, well, you know. But I did my makeup so I could not cry because I know myself. I wanna go outside. And if I cry, then I can't go outside. So, cheat code. Anyway, so I just want to talk about grief because I've just been seeing, and like I know that like a lot of people are going through it, and some people that I personally know. And there was a day I got the news of a loss that a few days ago, and that kind of really like shook me. Like it was just like yo, and I realized that sometimes we don't realize the importance and the time it takes, the way your body responds to things, and like the connections between like grieving and like your life and your mental state and everything that's going on around you. And just like sharing my experience might actually just help someone out there who's going through something similar. So yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so if you're new here and you don't know what I'm talking about, a few years ago I lost my grandmother in November 2020. Oh, was it 2020? Yeah, November 2020. And my dad in January 2020, well, end of November, essentially basically almost December, to be honest. And then my dad in January. And the thing that rocked me the most about my dad was my dad passed away 13 days after I got engaged, so that was kind of a double whammy. Like, you know, when it rains it just pours. Like, it's just like, and it's not like the engagement was sad, it's just that like you get happy and then it's like whoop, stripped right away from you, just like that. Like, it's like, no, not you, Nia, you can't be happy, you're gonna just be sad. Okay, I just want you to be sad, and that's what's going on here. And I was like, oh my god, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? I thought I was gonna be a 2021 bride, but now I'm a 2021 grief baby. So that was that. And okay, I'm gonna stop being silly right now, but this is just how I process my emotions. I like to laugh and make jokes because that's just what I do. Like, I don't know, it's what I do. Anyway, and during that time I didn't actually understand like the idea of grief, because just for like some background, I grew up not really going to funerals. My parents always shielded us from that. We never really I think the only funeral I went to was my mom's dad, and I was like in high school. And I remember, I'm not even gonna lie to you, I remember just not like understanding what was going on and just feeling like, why am I here? Like, type thing, right? Because that's how divorced from the idea of death I was, right? Like, and also the family members that I have been close to my entire life have always been there. So it's not something that was like, it was like, you know about like death but you don't understand it. And so when it happened, it like happened. And so I didn't know how to process it, right? And like I did what every other person does. Like, and this is kind of like, I think, the toxic trait of humanity. Whereas back in the day, people would actually be like more, remember back in the day, like in like Jesus time, when people would like spend the whole year wearing black. If you're in mourning and everybody knows that right? And I feel like these days we're very much, you bury your loved one, you mourn about it for like maybe a month, and then past that everybody's like, okay, build a bridge and let's get on with it. Like, let's keep it moving. And the problem with doing that is you're gonna ignore it, right? And the problem with ignoring something like grief and pain, bestie, just like that girl, the fourth in our star said, pain, it demands to be felt. Pain is like, she's like a golden retriever or a husky, if you know anything about dogs. If you don't give those guys attention, they're gonna scream. Like my dog Blue, when he is hungry, he's gonna bark, he's gonna scream, he's gonna howl, he's gonna kick the door and like scratch. He would scratch, like, you know how many times my parents had to like repaint the door, like that he would scratch 24/7 every single time he was hungry, because he demanded to be heard. He would be like, you're gonna hear me and you're gonna do something about it, otherwise I'm not gonna stop. And Jeshua, he wouldn't stop. And that's how pain is, and grief. You can like lock yourself up in a house and like try to distract your mind with like work and like hobbies and like friends and like relationships, but the more you sit in that house pretending it's not happening, bestie, it's gonna howl and scream and bark and scratch the door, bang the door, knock until it breaks it down. And that's what happened to me. I was like that girl. I was like, okay, I'm still gonna get married because my dad want me to move on. So I started planning a wedding. I started just ignoring everything. That was like, I think even on YouTube I was still active at that time, until one day I just snapped. Like, snap. And the funny thing is, I didn't snap outside emotionally. I snapped in the sense that my body started like feeling a lot of pain. And bear in mind, I'm still the same person who I had my surgery before and I was fine. Everything was fine. Now I'm starting to feel pain. I was so convinced, you could not convince me otherwise, that like the endometriosis was back. Like nobody could have convinced me otherwise. I even went to the doctor. I went to Dr. Georgia Vick and I was like, girl, is it back in like a year? Have I been set free only to be trapped again? Like, is it just gonna keep raining and pouring? She's like, no, you're fine. And I was like, no, I'm not, because I'm feeling pain every single day, right? And so I started like taking painkillers and like just being in pain all the time and whatever. And at the time I didn't realize that it was because I was ignoring the grief that my body started to like just react, right? Because that's the problem when you don't deal with like your pain and grief. That's like the first thing I want to say. Like when it comes to like healing and pain and grief and like talking about it, communicating that you're feeling these feelings and expressing them. And this isn't just like in terms of grief. I'm just gonna like sum it up to like any trauma that you have or any emotions that you're feeling like towards a person. The problem with holding it in with your mouth, your body is the one that's gonna suffer for it. And sometimes some people wonder why they feel physical pain when they're going through heartbreak or grief, or like you start getting actual physical symptoms. Like for me, it was manifesting in how my body, the only pain it kind of knew off the top of his head was the endometriosis pain, which is probably why it came back. And because my mind was trying to force my body to just accept that we're just gonna move on, but my body is like, bro, I need to let this out, I need to let this pain out. And so because I wouldn't let it out through my mouth, it was like, well, then we're just gonna like, stab and stab and stab at your stomach until you deal with it, right? Even like when you think about it from like a biblical perspective, right? I think it's James 5 verse 16 that talks about how we need to communicate, like talk. Sana, use your mouth. It says communicate. Wait, James 5:16. Let me look it up, because I write things down and then I forget what it says. Oh yeah, it says confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed, right? And I feel like, and this is not in connection to like sins, I'm talking about like experiences like trauma and like heartbreak and pain and just being vulnerable and talking to each other and like grief and stuff. You've got to be somebody who becomes more comfortable with the idea of talking to people, because sometimes in life it's not enough to just talk to God, because that's why even in the Bible it says confess your sins to each other, because there is strength in talking to someone, there's vulnerability in talking to someone about what you're going through, because again, two can carry a burden or something that you're going through better than just doing it by yourself. And a lot of the time, this culture that we're living in this generation, we have glamorized or popularized the idea of suffering in silence. Like, I feel like our generation sometimes, this thing of being a group of people who talk about, oh, you don't know my life, I just show the highlight reel, and only giving people the highlight reel. We are encouraging the people who see us and the people who are coming after us and the young people who look up to us to hold in secrets and their experiences. We don't encourage people to speak up, and it's more prevalent in I want to say in men, because men from a young age as boys, they're told, you don't cry, a man doesn't speak up, you don't talk about your emotions, you don't like, we don't have communications and whatever, and this, that, and the third. And this is why when you even think about it, the rate for men is much higher than for women, because if you continue to bottle up those emotions, it's gonna manifest in your body as pain, as sadness, as anger, and all of that combined, eventually you're going to explode. That's why your body ends up just giving up. And in some people, this is why you start to feel a lot of physical symptoms like that mirror illnesses. And sometimes when you go to the doctor, you experience like or heard about stories where some people, they are physically getting sick, like you can see it, right? Like Mono is losing weight, all these bad things are happening to them and whatever, but the doctor doesn't know why. Like medicine can't diagnose you. I think sometimes it's because you hold things in, like you hold in secrets, you hold in pain, you hold in trauma, you hold in grief, you hold in fear, you hold in anger and all of it, and eventually your body is gonna start feeling betrayed by your mind and your mouth, and it's just gonna start acting out. And it starts to act out in the physical manifestation of some of these symptoms of pain. And I'm just here to encourage people that, guys, I know it's tough, and I know this world, there's very few people you can trust with your secrets, where people have become people who are somewhat untrustworthy, where if somebody tells you something, you just can't help yourself but to tell your best friend. Where there was a running joke of I remember Pretty Little Liars, their song was two can keep a secret if one of them is dead, right? And that's insinuating that basically the minute you tell someone else, unless they're dead, they're gonna go and tell somebody else, right? And there's also this, I remember there was a time there was a running joke on Instagram where people would be like, oh, if you tell me your secrets, it's not your secret, it's between me, you and my husband, or me, you and my best friend, or me, you and my sister, or whatever, right? And it's like, it's kiki, haha, it's funny, but I don't believe that that's what like life is supposed to be. Like if somebody comes to you in open vulnerability and is trusting you with something that they're experiencing, I think you are a foul human being if you go and you tell a third person. I really do, because it says a lot about your own personal integrity and your personal ethics and your personality if you are the type of person who goes around everything somebody tells you, you're going and you're going to share, Like, friend, if I wanted your husband to know, or if I wanted your sister to know, I would have like called a group meeting, the three of us, and I would have told you both. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's why some people end up holding things in, because everybody in their life has disappointed them when they are open and vulnerable, and they go and they share their vulnerabilities and their traumas to other people. And so this one is for the people who like speak, who like to share other people's secrets. Guys, rest, heal from it, pray for redemption and change, and stop doing that. You know what I mean? Because it's not nice. Like, it doesn't benefit the other person, and it doesn't benefit you. And the truth is about integrity is sometimes it's an inward thing. Like, nobody's going to force you to have integrity. Okay, you can be held accountable, but when it comes to like being a promise keeper and being somebody with ethics, you have to do the work yourself, right? And I feel like this society, before things get ugly, we need to also be people who are going against the grain of like the way life is and society is, and showing up for each other in our entirety, like with genuine sincerity. Because part of the reason why society is so broken, and part of the reason why people are so afraid to speak up, is because everybody's just doing what everybody's doing. So if everybody's lying, everybody's just gonna start lying. And as believers, we've got to start being people who actually don't just read the Bible 24/7. It's a waste of time. You're genuinely wasting your time if all you do is read the words on the Bible, but you don't live them in your own personal life. And the Holy Spirit will convict you until a certain point in time where it can't convict you, because you're not listening to it anyway. You know what I mean? And so for the people who have shared and whose trust has been violated, whether it's by a family member or by a friend, honestly, I'm sorry, but that shouldn't make you give up. The same way you can eat food from a restaurant, and if it tastes bad today, some of you will go back tomorrow hoping that it's going to be better, or you write off that particular restaurant, but you can go to 5 other restaurants and eat food from them, and not just write off the idea of food alone. The same way some of you get fired from your jobs, or you leave a job and you keep applying to jobs 24/7 every single day in the hope that another job will work out. The same way you guys will get dumped, or you break up with your boyfriends and girlfriends and you won't give up on love and you still keep dating other people. It's the same way you have to treat certain things, like getting help for the things that you're going through. One bad therapist is not the 5 million other therapists out there. One bad experience with one person or 2 people or 3 people should not stop you from getting the help that you need, because at the end of the day, this is something that benefits you. And it's something that I learned over time with my grief, where I had to stop holding things in, because when I spoke about it to a few people, it didn't work out or whatever, and I only found healing, and like I was set free from the pain I was feeling in my uterus and my stomach and whatever, when I finally spoke up and was more intentional about healing from the grief of my dad, and from the grief of the person I thought I was going to be at this age, from the loss of certain relationships where I thought they'd be now and how they ended up and whatever. Because bottling up emotions, it never helps, because one thing about it, you're always going to express them in a different way, because again, pain demands to be felt. And so that's my advice for people today, and that's just all I wanted to share, that we just need to be people who are more open and vulnerable about the way you're feeling and your experiences, because holding things in and bottling it in, it never helped anyone. It's never gonna help you. Like, and you can't distract yourself out of, like, you can't like distract yourself and run away from your feelings, because one thing about those feelings, they're always gonna catch up with you one way or another. And when they catch up with you, bestie, they're gonna eviscerate everything in your way in order for you to be left with just you and the pain. And then it'll be like, okay, deal with me now. And the problem with waiting for that to happen is sometimes it might happen at a point where now you've isolated yourself from the people you really would have been able to get help from, because you could have damaged them. And so it's very important that the sooner we feel something, and the sooner something happens to us that's traumatic or whatever or bad, we talk about it. Because sometimes problems don't exist until you talk about them being a thing. Like, you cannot just be dying on the inside, especially as women. Sometimes we have a tendency of bottling up our emotions and just like letting things happen to us, and then we just talk about how, no, it's okay, it's not a big deal, it doesn't affect me, it doesn't hurt me. But then we act like volcanoes who like bubble, and then it erupts. And then when you erupt on everyone. This is why sometimes some people, their mothers, they tolerate some of like their behaviors as kids, and maybe the husband and whatever, and then one day she just erupts on everybody, and now the whole house is wondering, could you go, what happened to this Kwan? But the whole time she was just bottling things up and not like dealing with it. Like, bottling up your emotions has never helped anyone. This might sound like an ad for BetterHelp, but it's not. It might sound like an ad for therapy, but it's not. It's just an ad. Oh, like, and also, actually, on that note, you might as well sign up to any like therapy, like find therapists. Like, if you're a student, I'm sure like schools have like free therapy, like counselors available. Churches have free counselors available. I don't know like if there's any like state resources for like free therapy and counseling or whatever. If they are, I'll link them down below and I'll look for some. But if you can't find people who you can be open and vulnerable with that you trust, then pay somebody to do it, because therapists are bound by their profession to not tell anybody. Because if your therapist tells people about what you're talking about, I think you can sue them, and I think you can get them disbarred. Or is disbarring only for lawyers? Or is it like, do therapists do like a bar exam? Do they? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so if you can't talk to anybody who you know and trust, or somebody who you feel like you can trust, then get a therapist, pay for it, and then you know that they're bound to like keep your secrets forever and ever, unless it's like completely detrimental to your health, I believe. But yeah, that's what I want to talk about. Like, that was my experience from like the lessons I learned from like my grief, like updated from like 3-4 years ago, because the person I was when I was grieving my dad when he first passed away is no longer the person that I am. And I realized that like there's this like statement that people like to say when it comes to grief, Gucci, time, it will all get better in time. No, it doesn't get better. I still think about him literally every single day, like maybe 50 times a day. Like, but I don't think it's that it's gotten better. I just got better at dealing with it and managing the grief. Like, you can overcome by getting better coping mechanisms, because unfortunately, yes, life does go on, but it doesn't have to go on with you carrying every single burden and every single experience and every single painful thing that's ever happened to you. And that's it. Love you guys like a love song. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.